I can't stop looking at the bike. I'm really happy with the way this has turned out. By now you guys have seen Faith V 2.0, and some of you are curious about what all I've done to make the bike look like this and get ready to go on tour. So in this video I'm going to walk you through the changes step by step. It's going to be a little bit long, but I'm going to tell you exactly what all has gone into the bike, why it's gone in, and what the thought process is. So I adopted an inside-out approach to getting stuff done on the bike, because when I started working on the bike, I was having electrical issues and the bike wasn't even starting. And unless the basics are working, there's no point getting to anything beyond that. So everything started from here, the battery. Now, if you own a Thunderbird 500 or any of the 500 cc's, you know that these guys use a 14 ampere hour battery. It used to come with this Excite Bikers battery, I think, which was a notorious battery. It used to keep failing. I think I've been through about 3 of them. But this time around, I went to the battery store and I came across this battery. This is a brand called Solance. I've never heard about it before. I don't really know much about it, but I was so sick and tired of the trouble with the Excite that I decided to try this out. It has no distilled water. I think it's one of those gel batteries, shot in the dark. But I've had such bad experiences with earlier batteries that I decided that something new is better than something that I know has not worked. So Solance went in, and then the bike came to life, and then the other system repair processes happened. I basically took the bike apart entirely. The tank came off, seats came off, all of this came off, and I went through every single hose and every single wire and every single part of the bike once, found things that looked worn out and changed them all. So that process took quite a bit of time, but once that is done, I know that at least when I'm starting my ride, things are the way that they're supposed to be. God only knows what's going to happen once I hit the road, but that was done. Now, in addition to all the hoses and pipes that I changed, I also added a spare accelerator cable, because on the Thunderbird 500, the accelerator cable runs underneath the tank, and it's a pain in many different places to try and get that done if your cable breaks on the road. So I just wired up an additional cable, rolled it up in plastic, and I've put one here, and the other end is rolled up and kept on that side. I've not done that for the clutch because the clutch cable is fairly easy to access and change. So I've not done that for the clutch. I'm carrying a spare clutch cable. The fork again is a problem area, or it has been for me at least. So I got the fork taken out. For this part I had to go to a mechanic. I don't have the tools and I don't have the knowledge on how to do this bit yet. So what we did is we removed the forks entirely, changed the fork oil, changed the fork seal, which goes underneath these fork gators. The fork seals were changed, new fork oil, and also the rubber washers over here. And then these fork gators came in from RM Motorcycle. They just slide in. You need to remove the fork and then slide this on. But once you slide it on, it just sits over here. And on this side, you get this little ring that you slide on, and you use that to hold the fork gator up on this side. I think it adds a really nice touch to the bike, and also keeps your shocks clean when you're riding in a lot of dust. I've been wanting to get one of these for a long time, but finally found the right ones for the bike. Moving on to the most noticeably different part of this bike, which is the handlebar and headlight and all of this stuff. Very practical reasons why all of these changes have been made. Now, obviously, headlight, the original stock light that comes with the bike, is something that has never really been very powerful. So I used to use aux lamps on the side, which were good, but I would find that over a period of time, if you're on a really long tour, eventually either the lamp or the switches, something or the other would give you trouble, and then you would not have the light when you needed it the most. So this time I decided to bite the bullet. I've sort of stayed away from going LED in the dome itself. But after riding the Dominar recently, I was just blown by the LED headlamp. So I decided, okay, let's try that out over here. Now this LED headlamp thing is a bit of a dicey process because there are so many, everything is Chinese. And I don't know the difference really between all of the headlamps. Trying to choose one was a nightmare process. I went to the automobile market in Chennai, Pudupet, and every shop I went into, nobody could actually tell me what headlight they were giving me, what brightness it would be, why different headlights cost different amounts. It made no sense. I think I went into 4 or 5 shops and like didn't find what I wanted. Eventually, I just had to go with gut and choose one. This one cost me, I think, about 2,400 rupees. It's supposedly better quality than the ones that cost 1,500 rupees. How, why, what, the box doesn't tell you and the shop doesn't tell you. So it's a bit of a leap of faith again. But it's nice. It's got a DRL, a nice ring DRL. And the light is not very focused when you turn on the headlamps, but it's bright and it's got a wide throw. So it seems to be quite good whether you're riding down a straight, and even when you're going into turns, the throw is wide. It's definitely not superior headlight technology, but it does a better job than the lights I used to have, and it does it without having to add aux lamps onto the anywhere on this bike. I then added on a grille. Just, I don't know, this is essentially cosmetic, but also hopefully will reduce how visible this is, because that can be a bit of an issue, because it would be considered a modification. I don't really understand why people have issues with modification when they're done for practical reasons. You know, like modifications, sometimes you need them on bikes, but apparently it's an issue in our country. It's okay. I needed this. I've done it. Moving on. Handlebar. I've always wanted knuckle guards on the bike, but the Thunderbird handlebar isn't exactly the best handlebar to put knuckle guards on. It'll look kind of odd. So I changed the handlebar. This is a RD350 style handlebar with a rod. It cost me about 300 rupees. The handlebar went on. It creates a slightly more upright riding posture. You need to lean forward a little bit when you're on it, but it's not too bad. And it also enabled adding these knuckle guards, which are crucial to protect your hands and your levers in case you're dropping the bike. These knuckle guards are Acerbis knuckle guards that I got from Bandido's pit stop. They also fit on all Royal Enfield bikes apparently. That's how they're sold. And they were quite easy to install. You add them on to your bar ends over here. One end goes in here. You also get a bracket that you add onto the handlebar, which extends out, and then screw this end on over here, and that's it. That's installation of the knuckle guards. And yeah, last thing, this chrome finish over here was peeling off, so I just added a sticker job over here to cover that up and make it look better. But I think that sort of rounds up the changes made on the front handlebar part of this bike. The rear does not have a Ladakh carrier. That was a pretty big decision. I was sort of attached to the Ladakh carrier, but it's heavy. It's really heavy, and you don't necessarily need it. And as you would have seen in the video that I made about the new luggage that I'm going to use, I don't really need the Ladakh carrier for that luggage. It's a much tidier setup, hopefully. Haven't yet tried it on the bike. But in preparation for that, I still wanted to have a little bit of a rear carrier just to tie up a tent or something like that, because sometimes you want to keep those things outside, especially if it's wet. So I wanted to have a small rear carrier, and I found this carrier at Quality in Chennai, as I was saying. This one, it goes into where your backrest is usually put for the Thunderbird. So that backrest came off, and this went in its place. The other important addition on the rear is this saddle stay from Viaterra Gear. They make luggage, and I didn't know that they made a saddle stay as well for the Thunderbird specifically, but I found it on their website and they sent one of these to me as well. And this thing, I think, is just genius. It's a very simple and elegant minimalist design, but it fits right in for the Thunderbird. I've always wanted to use a saddle stay, but I was too lazy to fabricate one, and I haven't found anything that was discreet like this. This looks really good. It's quite sturdy and very easy to install. So this went on to protect the saddlebag on this side of the bike. On the other side, I was tempted to fabricate something similar and use it on this side just to make the bike look a little bit more sort of light at the back, but I decided I will keep the sari guard so that if and when someone stops me saying that this bike doesn't look stock, I will say, look, it has a sari guard. If it has a sari guard, then all is good. New tires as well. They are a 90-90-19 in the front and 120-80-18 in the back, which is the stock size that comes for the bike. But these are different tread patterns. Timson has a few different tread patterns. I think this is a 712 and that is a 822. I haven't used Timson before, but I've heard good things about it. I figured I'll take the plunge once and see whether it's worth it. I mentioned tubeless, so these are tubeless tires, but I've put a tube inside. So that's how the Michelin Siracs work, and I think even the Ralco Speed Blasters, all of these tires are tubeless tires, but you add a tube inside when you're running them on spoked wheels on a bike like this. Having walked you through the significant changes made on the bike, let's now talk about the overall budget for this facelift. The new handlebar cost me 300 rupees and the Acerbis knuckle guards about 1700. The LED headlight was another slightly pricey addition at 2500 rupees, but the grille cost only 400 rupees. The fork gators for the front shocks along with nylon bushes were for 750 rupees and the new crash guard was for 800. On the rear, the tail rack cum backrest cost another 800 rupees and the saddle stay from Viaterra was a shade under 1000. The most expensive additions were the new Timson tires, which cost around 8500 rupees for the set, plus another 800 odd rupees for new tubes for the front and the rear. Another 1500 rupees was spent on some cosmetic changes, new seat covers, new exhaust wrap, some stickering work, and a basic coat of paint for the rims and some parts of the bike. Since I did most of the work on the bike myself, with some help from my father and a friend, labor cost was almost non-existent, so overall the facelift of my Thunderbird cost me less than 20,000 rupees, which obviously would have been nearly halved if I hadn't changed the tires. I've not included the cost of the new battery and spares changed on the bike because that has more to do with maintenance rather than modification, but if it interests you, the cost of all parts, spares, fluids for that aspect worked out to about 5,000 rupees additionally. And that's about it. Those are really the changes that I've made on the bike. I have obviously worked on the chain and the fundamental mechanics of the bike previously, so that is just due process. You do a whole servicing, change your engine oil, get your chain serviced, make sure that it's lubricated, clean it out thoroughly, and check your brake oil levels, check your brake pads. If your bike is running, those things should be done, whether it's in the city or you're taking it anywhere else. So these are just the upgrades and the modifications and the changes that were made on Faith, and I think we're ready to go now.